let's get to some of the news in the region, and I'm gonna just tell you the news. Before I show you the news, I'm gonna tell you the news. The news is it's a tinderbox out here. And these ceasefires are like moments away from breaking. And I'm supposed to fly out this week. The chances of me flying out, I think, are 50-50, okay? Because there is definitely a very unstable atmosphere here in the Straits of Hormuz, in the rhetoric that we hear from President Trump, in what's happening in Lebanon, with Gaza, with the terrorists in Judea and Samaria, with the Yemenite, with the Houthis. There is a tension in the air. There's no doubt about it. I'm certain of it. Now, let me spell it out to you through the advent of the news. But what I'm telling you is it's shaky ground out here. Shaky ground. It's like we're just a hair's breadth away from some kind of explosion. I don't put any stock at all into this business of ceasefires. The ceasefires are momentary pauses in the war, and that's the atmosphere around here, that we're getting back to war really soon. And that's my sense. And now let's look at it. Let's start with Sky News and see how they're reporting it.
Of the Iran war, how is it that with President Trump having devastated the Iranian military, they're still able to control the Strait of Hormuz, despite President Trump's claim that it's America with a blockade that's doing so, despite the fact that the Strait of Hormuz was actually open because of the blockade? The Iranians have now closed it.
So let's just stop for a second and just kind of say this. Everybody's trying to block the blocker. And the question that Sky was saying is very real, which is President Trump has said that these guys, the Iranians, have no more capacity and capability, and yet they seem to be blocking the Straits of Hormuz. Then President Trump said that they did what's it called? They undermined the deal that they agreed in, and he threatened to strike at them, and yet they are blocking the Straits of Hormuz. Let's get through this Sky News piece.
There are two key issues that are causing Iran to do this, one of which is the minefield that's laid here. Not entirely sure how many mines are there. There may be none at all. Professionally, there could be up to 12 there. All that does is it pushes the flow of traffic up to the north past Larak Island, and therefore gives the Iranians much more control over the minefield. How many mines has Iran got? Up to 6,000, but as I said, it's just the threat of mines there that's causing the issue. What sort of mines have the Iranians got? Well, there's a selection that they have in their stockpiles, up to 6,000 of these. They won't be using floating mines because they'd be as much of a threat to all traffic, including the Iranian traffic. But they have some moored mines and also seabed mines. Each of those can be operated off an acoustic fuse or a magnetic fuse. They also have some limpet mines that can be attached to the sides of the vessels here by special forces and the like. Now, these mines will be relatively easily cleared by minesweepers. The Americans have some very potent capability there, but as soon as those minesweepers get anywhere close to the minefield, they're obviously in range of the Iranians. And that really triggers the second line of defense for the Iranians. They have been preparing for this for many decades. They have a selection of drones, missiles, anti-ship missiles particularly, and by forcing the traffic up further to the Iranian coastline, it makes it easier for them to use these weapons. Now, for the last 24 hours, the Iranians have actually been imposing their will on the Straits. They've threatened 3 ships. There's 2 LPG carriers, liquid propane gas, that tried to make their way through and have been turned back. And the actual attacks by the Iranians on 3 vessels probably weren't trying to sink them, probably just trying to threaten them. Now, although the United States claims to have sunk 150 of Iran's warships, what Iran is actually reverting to using is their Mosquito fleet. This is their fleet of very small speedboats. You see a couple of them here. We'll see more of them a little bit. But these are armed with machine guns, rocket-propelled grenades, can even control other drones, and there are some smaller versions of them that can be packed full. And as you can see here, they can operate in a swarm. They're quite difficult to target, they're quite evasive. Individually, they're not much of a threat, particularly to American shipping, but collectively, they can combat American technology and quality with quantity. So let's look at the US blockade then, because it's completely different. It's much more conventional use of military power. First of all, it's not actually on the Strait of Hormuz. It's actually at the far end of the Persian Gulf, out in the open sea. And what the Americans are doing is they're using satellite technology to track the vessels as they leave Iranian ports. If the Iranian ships continue, then they are using radio to threaten them. And then subsequently, if that's not working, they're using fighter aircraft to buzz them. Now, those fighter aircraft might be based on the Abraham Lincoln shown here, or they might be land-based. If that's not working, what the Americans will then do is use their destroyers to go in, very visible sign of a threat for any of the tankers or traffic moving. And if these don't work, they've got helicopters that can land on the deck and potentially board or seize the vessels, all of which is the focus on Iranian ships leaving the Iranian ports. The challenge there is many of those are moving Chinese goods. There's an arms for oil deal between China and Iran. Just imagine the friction, the potential escalation if an American warship starts to assault a Chinese ship. But time is the real issue here. The ceasefire is due to end on Tuesday evening. At the moment, the Straits of Hormuz is still closed. Time available to find a peace deal is fast running out.
Great report there from Sky News, giving us a great picture. And as I said, a tinderbox. This whole region right now is a tinderbox. If it's the Strait of Hormuz, if it's Lebanon, really Gaza as well. We had 2 terrorists walking into past the yellow line into the Israeli zone in Gaza. They were shot dead. Israel sadly lost 2 soldiers in Lebanon this week. So very much a tinderbox. Let's listen to one of our favorite news reporters out there. And that is Trey Yingst from Fox, as he gives us a rundown on what's going on in the situation with Iran, with Hormuz Straits. What's going on over there? What's it really looking like? And I think, as I told you before, that we're on the verge of yet another kind of explosion here. And I'm wondering if I'm flying out this week. That's my big question. It becomes personal. Am I flying out this week? Let's take a look. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you enjoy that. That was uplifting even to myself. It was great stuff. Let's take a look at what Trey Yingst, how he analyzes the situation, and we'll give our analysis as well.
Reportedly holding a situation room meeting yesterday with top officials as he weighs whether or not to extend the ceasefire with Iran, which ends Tuesday night.
Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst joins us now from Israel with the latest. Trey, good morning.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. The ceasefire between the United States and Iran is set to expire in just 72 hours. And already the Iranians are testing the agreement. Over the weekend, 2 vessels that were trying to pass through the Strait of Hormuz reported gunfire toward their ships. Other vessels were able to pass, but the Iranians say the strait is closed once again and in their control.
If traffic is still taking place in the Strait today and is proceeding, we control the Strait. Now, for 2 or 3 days, the U.S. has deliberately laid siege. What does siege mean? It means that everyone comes and goes, but Iran doesn't go. What a foolish and ignorant decision.
The U.S. blockade of Iranian ports remains in effect. CENTCOM said that 23 vessels complied with their warnings to turn around on Saturday. Additional vessels were forced to turn around today. President Trump spoke from the Oval Office over the weekend about the situation in the Strait.
They got a little cute, as they have been doing for 47 years. Nobody ever took them on. We took them on. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. They have no leaders. They have no nothing. Actually, their leaders it is regime change.
The Iranians continue to threaten U.S. forces in the region, but while the Iranians are talking, the Americans are preparing, sending dozens of additional transport planes to the region over the weekend.
Wait a minute. Now, this point, I want to stop for a second and just give a little analysis here. This is what I said before. When I listen to Trump, I don't listen to his words anymore. I just look to see, is he sending more warships or more warplanes? And the answer is yes, sending in more warplanes. So therefore, that is really what I am looking to and thinking that is much more a realistic marker of how to understand the news. Is sending in more troops, more arms, more planes, more guns. Okay, then that's what we're heading towards. By the way, I just want to stop here for a second and thank Ed Small here, who became a YouTube member. And here on the show, you could like, comment, subscribe. Please do it now. Please do it now. Like, subscribe, comment. It makes a big difference because we serve God Almighty, but we have also something to contend with, which is the algorithm. And it's important that people join right now, which is this was the most important point. I want to hear that again, which is that, yes, U.S. sends dozens of flight transports to the Middle East ahead of ceasefire deadline or basically ahead of restarting the war, okay?
The Iranians continue to threaten U.S. forces in the region, but while the Iranians are talking, the Americans are preparing, sending dozens of additional transport planes to the region over the weekend.
The upper hand is with our forces.
Who are these guys? Why are they even still around?
We hold the advantage. We have not struck many of the targets. In other words, we have left some more important matters for later stages. And if matters return to war again, we hold the upper hand. We can stop oil production. We can shut down 15 million barrels of oil a day and keep...
Economic warfare is what they're threatening. Economic warfare. All right, understand that. That's really what's behind this thing, economic warfare.
it suspended for an entire year. We did not want to create major disruption in the world, so we showed patience and acted with restraint.
The reality is the United States has the upper hand, the most powerful military in the world that is preparing if negotiations fail. Guys?
So, Trey, clear this up, because there seems to be some confusion about whether the Strait is open or not.
I have to admit that I myself get confused. It's like open, closed. Who's blocking who? I block you. No, I block you. Which one is it?
I spoke with regional sources over the weekend who said the Strait is effectively closed because the Iranians are now firing on vessels that are trying to pass through. We know that some vessels were able to make it through the Strait, but the Iranians came out after President Trump said the Strait was open, saying that it's closed and it's in their control. What's interesting, though, is that the Iranian foreign minister even said exactly what President Trump was saying only hours later, to be rebuffed by his own state media through officials there in the IRGC, saying that the foreign minister's statement was incorrect. So the Iranians don't even know the answer to that question. And it gives you a sense of how effective the U.S. and Israeli campaign against the Iranian regime was over the past 45 days, because it sent an inability for the Iranians to communicate within their ranks. And also, there are clear disagreements between not only the foreign minister, but also the Speaker of Iran's parliament and top IRGC officials about what to do with the Strait of Hormuz. Guys?
Trey, so the Iranian regime is saying, well, we've got the upper hand and we can just shut off oil for, up to a year if we want, and that'll hurt you, but it actually hurts China, right, the most?
Yeah, it hurts China and other countries. The United States relies very little on the oil that is passing through the Strait of Hormuz, just a few percentage points when you look at the spreadsheet for American usage of this oil. Some European countries, the number is 20 or 30%. But as it relates to the Iranians, what they are describing here is actually a situation that is hurting their economy, not the U.S. economy, because the Iranians use Karg Island for 90% of their crude oil processing. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway to export their oil. So the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports was described to me today as strategic excellence by President Trump, understanding that this is choking off the main ability for the Iranian economy to function.
Let's just look at this picture for a second. You see, first thing you see, the when it says USS, all these, I guess, what you're saying is the naval vessels that the United States has in the region. That is a lot of firepower. That is a lot of firepower. And my guess is that you're going to see that firepower activated once again to really control the Straits of Hormuz and to take control of Iranian oil. That is going to be the next stage. I think that part of the thing that President Trump does is he says, look, I'm constantly trying to make a deal. I'm trying to make a deal. I'm trying to make a deal. But in the end, when they don't play ball with him, he's going to be like, well, I'm going to force you to make a deal. It's not going to be exactly a deal. It's going to be something that I force. And that deal is going to be that the United States has control and does not allow exactly the very threat that we heard that general say previously, which is we have a way to threaten global oil. We can shut it down and play global economic warfare. So that is what I think is going to start happening in 3 days. And again, I'm supposed to fly out and I've already been delayed. I was supposed to fly out. The war broke out. Before that, I was supposed to fly out. I broke my toe trying to liberate a piece of property in Hebron. And so now I'm supposed to fly out and speak in the United States, but we'll see if that happens. In any case, what we're seeing is here are the ships that are on ready alert in active engagement here in the Middle East.
And so while the Iranians make many of these statements publicly, privately, they are very worried about what is taking place. And again, they don't hold the cards at the negotiating table or on the battlefield. And it gives President Trump a variety of options if the Iranians are unwilling to move the needle. Remember, just over the weekend, it looked like there was some progress being made toward a second round of direct talks between the United States and Iran. Now the Iranians are saying they're going to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed. They are saying they're not willing to give up their highly enriched uranium. And they say they are prepared to return to war with the United States. They're trying to call President Trump's bluff. And as we have seen in the past, the president is not bluffing. He is very serious about the situation with Iran. And there are two options for the Iranians. Either they make a good faith deal and give up their enriched uranium, or it will be taken from them.
Okay, so that's a very important point, which is, once again, the Iranians are calling the bluff, or they think they're calling the bluff of President Trump. And we had on we had on Jonathan Conricus. He said it's like muscle memory. They just think they could play around with everybody around the world. They don't believe that a President Trump will ever act any differently than a President Biden or an Obama. And they kind of, their muscle memory is causing them to continually kind of take for granted that they're going to be struck. And maybe that's to our advantage. Maybe that's the best thing that can happen, because that way the fighting can go on until that regime is indeed destroyed or reduced to the point that the people of Iran can take it down and take it over.
Trey, it's Lucas. Pakistani media is reporting today it looks like there's been some C-17 flights into Islamabad. It looks like talks could be resuming this week. You talk about the chaos inside Iran with the leadership, the IRGC versus the politicians. What do you think the next steps are with these talks? Could they be resuming this week?
It's a great question. There was a delegation from Pakistan.
By the way, I just want to show you guys one of the comments right now. Iran smashed you. Really? 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 I mean, like, really? Like, you really? Is that where you're living in this world? Because then we have a problem of you know, like Israel is in a completely vibrant mode. Is that look at our shekel versus the Iranian rial? Like, just be realistic for a second. So here you got people writing to you. They're like Iran smashed you. You're like, you're just you know, you're living. And I think right now in our chat room we got all kinds of you know, Iran bots, Qatar bots, whoever they are. They're just in right now, and that's great. You know, because I love that they help my the show go further and help us with the algorithm. So I don't mind these kind of bots, but the bottom line is that, like, they are delusional. They're really delusional.
And that arrived in Tehran late last week and tried to move the ball forward. And the Iranians even acknowledged this. They said they received new proposals from the Americans, but they'd not yet responded. We're at the last minute here, down to the wire, less than 72 hours away before this ceasefire ends. And the president has indicated he's not really interested in extending the ceasefire agreement. If the Iranians are willing to make a good faith deal, they're going to make it right now. And so the question is whether or not there are going to be a second round of direct talks this week in Islamabad, Pakistan. Preparations appear underway for that possibility. But again, the president yesterday holding that situational assessment at the White House with top generals, military commanders, and cabinet officials. And so the president understands the battlefield here. And we are looking at a situation where there's either going to be an agreement or the war in some capacity is going to resume. And so in the coming days, we expect to get more information about the possibility of talks. President Trump has indicated he prefers a diplomatic option, but remains prepared should this campaign resume.
Great
The
stuff,
clock
Trey.
is
Thank
the
you,
clock is
Trey.
ticking indeed. Trey, thank you very much.
Trey, let's hope that things de-escalate and that negotiations resume. We'll make one.
Why is she saying that? Why did she say we hope that things de-escalate and negotiations resume? Why would we want that? We want to get rid of these guys. They're evil. You don't negotiate with these guys. You got to get rid of them. Do you want to avenge the 42,000 people that were gunned down in the streets of Iran and Tehran and the other cities? It's like, do you really want them to stay around? Do you want to give them a lifeline? Forget about it. And you know what? They don't want the lifeline. They spit in your face. I respect them in that sense. You know, they are all the way dark. They're think of them as like a dangerous animal, like a snake. You can't negotiate and be like, will you be a good snake? Will you be a nice snake? Will you not bite me? It's just not going to happen. They are totally dedicated. And that's one of the West's classic mistakes, is they think that they can somehow fix these guys and teach them a lesson and mow the lawn and live another day and turn the other cheek and all these things. It's all failure. And you heard what the Pope said, what's wrong with the Iranian regime having the bomb? I don't see any problem with that. They should have the bomb if they want the bomb. Well, then you're condemning millions of people to be burnt alive. That's not moral. So yeah, no, I'm not looking to see negotiations resume and for some kind of calm to resume. That's not what's interesting here. What's interesting is to get rid of them. And my guess is that that's exactly what we're going to see in the next few days. We're going to see a reigniting of this war. That's my also my emotional, my kind of radar of the region is telling me. Of course, I might be wrong, but that's my sense. And again, my question is, am I flying out or not? But I do know that the God of Israel is doing great things. We are here in the Middle East, and the land of Israel is flourishing.